It's true, bamboo bedding is dreamy to sleep on. That's why Quince aptly named their Bamboo Dream Quilt Set. Coming in 12 colors, you're absolutely going to love this quilt and 2 shams set. Starting at the softest of pinks and going all the way to a dark navy. It's going to be perfect for anyone's room. Your own, your guest rooms, your kids' rooms, maybe even back to the dorm bedding. Quince has everything you need to elevate your space, from bedding to soft organic towels, airy curtains, and premium kitchen tools designed for everyday use. And of course, as you know, Quince has gorgeous cashmere and other wardrobe essentials. And the best part, Quince's products are half the cost of similar brands. They partner with top artisans and cut out the cost of the middleman, passing the savings on to us. Thank you, Quince. And they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices, so you can feel good about your purchases from Quince. Elevate your space with home essentials from Quince. Go to quince.com/DTT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/DTT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/DTT. Come in and have a seat. We have some things to tell you. Hey everybody, it's Kelly Wilkniss with Anita Joyce, and this is Decorating Tips and Tricks. Today we are discussing dining room mistakes you may or may not be making. Maybe you're setting it and forgetting it, or maybe you're not even setting it and you're forgetting it. There's a lot of things you could be doing in your dining room to make it fabulous, whether you're an entertaining maven or whether or not you just pass through that room once in a while, and it's got to look good just for you.
You're right, Kelly. I think a lot of times this is a neglected room. I think people tend to decorate it once and they feel like it's done because it has a table, it has chairs in there, maybe there's a buffet or a china cabinet in there, but I think they're not thinking about the room a lot, maybe because they've checked the box, it's done, and they don't think about it again. So I do see a lot of neglected dining rooms, and we don't want your dining room neglected. We want your guests to feel celebrated and welcomed.
We really want you to use your dining room. As I mentioned, whether you entertain a lot or not, you can still use your dining room. It's kind of bad mojo, bad vibes not to use rooms in your home. Well, God bless if you have a house big enough where there are rooms you never even have to go in. But even if you have such a big house, you should go in there and do something in those rooms and make use of them. It's just better for the whole vibe of the house to be using these spaces.
So I'm going to link to the episode we did. Do you remember Is the Dining Room Dead?
Yeah, that was a good one.
I'm going to include that link because if you're not using it as your dining room, you can use it for something else. And we'll link to that episode and you'll enjoy it.
Yes, and that thing we all went through that I'm tired of hearing the word of. We don't have to talk about that, but yes, there were other reasons why people were using their dining room for a long period of time. It did not have to do with eating. And so if you're still doing that, that's a good use of your dining room. You could do some work in there or bring your laptop in there. Use it, especially if it's going to be as beautiful as it should be. And if you have listened to our other dining room episodes, you've already got great tips on how to decorate it. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, but today we're going to highlight the mistakes you might be making. So if you're listening and you got your AirPods in or we're on speaker even in your home, bring us into the dining room and have a look around while we're talking about this very special room. It can be almost akin to a powder room in that you can make it fabulous and go a little over the top. But let's focus on some of the mistakes that might be being made, and then we can talk a little bit, if we've got some time, about how you might want to fix those things. And we're going to throw in a great deal of entertaining ideas as well, I think. Right, Anita?
Correct. So the first thought I have is about the lighting. I don't want you to have the interrogation lighting set up. If the lighting's too bright, it's not going to feel comfortable or inviting. I think you want to have some warm lighting, maybe some lighting on the yellow side, nothing too blue. You want something that's soft. So, light coming in from the windows, some lamps, perhaps a chandelier or or the can lights in the ceiling, but make sure it's set to a soft glow and not to, full blast. So, that's something to think about. And you can include now we've got the Pookie or other brand of the table lights you can put on the table, the cordless lamps. So I like to have those on my table. I like to have them on. They're very soft lighting. And you can also go with candles. I think there's a lot of things you can do here to add some very warm and inviting lighting.
Right. So the mistake would be having bad lighting, right? So you don't want to have just overheads, and certainly not having just overheads that aren't on dimmers. Another mistake that people make is not taking advantage of the idea of having a real showstopper light fixture, chandelier, something fabulous over the table. That is your jewelry for this very special room. And so that's some place that you can add a lot of personality and a lot of interest. What I would stay away from, and another mistake people make, is they might love the structure of the fixture, and sometimes people tend to choose something that's more linear because their table is a long rectangle, and they might be choosing something where the bulb direction is down. I don't like that. I think that's a mistake. Even in a kitchen, I think that's a mistake. But if it's over an island, you're not necessarily sitting around it all the time. And the lighting needs to be brighter in a spot like that because oftentimes there's tasks like chopping or whatnot going on. You're not doing those sorts of tasks in a dining room. I don't like to look up as a diner sitting in someone's dining room and see an exposed bulb, no matter how pretty the bulb is, Edison or etc. Right? If you're seeing a naked bulb, I don't like that. And it's shining straight down, right? So it's making sort of these circles of light on the table. I would much rather have the arms of the chandelier going up and the light bulbs being more of candelabra size and wattage. We've got lots of information in our prior episodes about wattage and incandescent versus LEDs and all of that. So if you need to go into the weeds on that, you can just search on our website. So I won't get into that right now. So the idea I want to get across is that it would be a mistake to have just down lighting either from the ceiling or from the chandelier over the table. Have those arms of the chandelier going up.
That's something that we see a lot, is that the lighting in the dining room is very dated looking. And I think a lot of people, the reason they neglect this is because they don't think about changing lighting because you have to call an electrician. They may be thinking about changing out lamps, but they kind of feel like, well, that's fixed. I can't do anything about it. Or, it just doesn't occur to them to call the electrician. It's not that horrible an expense. It is an expense, but I think it's, it really does hurt the beauty of the room if you've got an ugly light fixture. That is what you said. Really something that you're going to notice. It's over your table. You're going to be looking at it. And if you have a stunner up there, it's going to be a real wow piece, and people are going to not forget it. And it's going to be a conversation piece. I think that is definitely worth the expense.
Yeah, and another note on that is the scale. So you want to make sure the light fixture, chandelier, I'm just using that term, you might think in your mind, crystal chandelier, just a large light fixture that really has some personality. You want to make sure it's big enough to be in scale with your table. And if you have a super long table and a very big dining room, and the light fixture is not tremendous, you could even consider using two. And that's a fabulous look if the table and the room is in scale with it. Another mistake you may be making is that there is just not enough room for the chairs. You have to accommodate for the chairs not only to be close to the table when not in use, but also that when someone sits in the chair and they pull it back to get in and out, that there is enough room. And I'm sure we'll talk about a rug in this particular type of room as we go on. But if you have a rug And that has to work with the chairs as well. You don't want to pull the chair out and then two of the legs are off the rug and two of the legs of the chair are on the rug. So you have to think about how that's going to work in the room. So, if the room is smaller, you don't want to choose a gigantic table because the chairs are not going to function properly. Or if you have a table and you want it bigger for those couple of days a year when you're doing the entertaining and having your whole family over, sort of on a day like that, maybe people squish in a little bit and you add the leaf. But on normal occasions, take those leaves out and make the functionality of the room much better because you have more space. And so the chairs can function properly.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that because we have a situation where we have some really beautiful large chairs around our dining room table, but you can only fit 2 on each side. So when we have a big crowd, I'll pull those out and use smaller chairs so we can get 3 on each side. And that is still comfortable. We're not getting jammed in, but that does make sense. And then we pull in a whole nother table. So I think definitely you need to make sure that the quarters aren't too tight. If you don't have room to get around the table, then maybe move some furniture or think about maybe moving the dining room to another room. I've seen people put the dining room table in the living room because it's bigger, and they make the dining room kind of a small sitting room instead. So that's certainly something that you can do. But if it's really tight, think about going outside, entertaining on your porch or outdoors. Just make sure, the weather's going to cooperate. But I think that is a problem when it's really tight. And I certainly have hosted and I've been guilty of doing this, but I was just the one who was hosting and I just had to do it. So I'm very grateful that now we actually have a lot of space to spread out when we have people over. And I feel like it makes me a more relaxed hostess because I'm not worried about or stressing about how people might be feeling that they might be jammed in the room.
So have you tried Dupe yet? If you haven't, come on, dupe.com. It is going to be your new shopping best friend. And it's not just for furniture. I know I've shared with you about my coffee table dupe, but you can save money with Dupe on fashion, shoes, jewelry, and more. I just used Dupe to find an absolute perfect twin of this t-shirt that I wanted. It was an $80 t-shirt. I was not going to pay $80 for a t-shirt. Dupe helped me find the twin, like maybe the exact same shirt. Find something you love, and then you can find replicas, twins, and maybe the exact thing for so much less. Give Dupe a try today. It is really so easy to use. You just type dupe.com / before any product URL in your browser, and voila! It instantly finds you less expensive alternatives. They even have an app and a browser extension you can download. No account is required. No sign up is required. It is completely free. I know, can you believe it? But it is completely free to use. Stop wasting money on brand names and start saving with dupe.com today. Too much wood in this room is a mistake. So this harkens back to maybe when you bought your dining set, or you were given a dining set, or you inherited various pieces, or you just collected a lot of wooden pieces over the years. So think about what could be wood and what is normally wood in this room. The table, the chairs, a buffet, maybe some type of cabinet. So and oftentimes the floor. All right, so there is a lot of wood in a dining room in general. So look around yours. Do you have too much wood? Are the wood stains competing? Is that old favorite that's no longer in favor, the cherry stain in that room? Is it all cherry stained? Is some of it cherry? And then it's hard to play with other wood tones that are in there. Have a look. Because when there's so much wood, there's so much hard surface, it's hard to make the room comfortable. It's just hard all over, right? It's
right,
hard
literally.
feeling, and it's hard to make it feel good. So think about that. How can you soften it up? There are so many ways to do that. A couple of quick tips. If you don't want to replace all the chairs, if they happen to be wooden, Just do the 2 host chairs, either end, if you have a rectangular table. Switch them out for something that's fully upholstered, like a Parsons chair, or even do some of those beautiful Riviera woven chairs. You could do a lot of different things, or switch out all the chairs for something really modern and mix the modern chairs with a wooden, perhaps antique style table. That's a great, cool look too. Maybe add small lumbar pillows to some of the wooden chairs if you don't even want to have the expense of replacing any of them. Of course, you have to make sure the lumbar pillow is going to fit and it's not squished in there. So, that will depend on your style chair. And if the chair doesn't have arms, sometimes the pillow is a little awkward, but maybe the 2 host chairs have arms and you could do something there. Just an opportunity to break up some of the wood, because too much wood in your dining room is a mistake.
Definitely. So I think you're right. I mean, curtains, a table runner, a tablecloth, definitely upholstered chairs. There's so many ways to add fabric. You're right. I think too many hard surfaces is a problem in the dining room. And while we're talking about chairs, another problem I see is the use of uncomfortable chairs. So if you have wooden chairs, you want to add some cushions, not just because fabric looks better, but because those cushions are going to make the chairs more comfortable. You want people to feel like they can sit there for a while and that they don't have to get up just because they can't stand sitting there much longer. So make sure your chairs are comfortable and make sure the seats have backs. The stools, like at the counter, those are fine for kids or for short periods of time. But if it's your dining room table, don't have the benches. Not only are the benches there, like even if the bench has a back, everyone has to stand up for you to get out and get up for whatever reason. So I don't like to see benches in there, especially if the benches don't have a back. But I admit to having a bench in there. No, wait a minute. Let me finish.
I just love that you admitted it.
No, wait a minute. I had a bench in there because for when it was not being used. So you walk in, the bench is there, and then the backs of the chairs weren't blocking the view, and they were just on the other side of the table. However, I would never use them while I have guests. That was just for looks. And if we had people over, trust me, that bench was moved out and I had proper chairs in there. So, that's
and it looked beautiful. But remember, when the bench thing came on, man, that was a strong trend. That went for a long time. And everybody wanted to do a bench. And you were absolutely right. And at that time, you were taking tons of pictures of your house all the time. Yes, right. Sure. So that was such a great thing, because oftentimes if the chair backs are so high, it's blocking whatever you've got going on the table. So the bench was also like a real blogger's friend when you were styling your table and taking photos of it, which is, something we did a lot of back in those days. So,
and back then, you're working with sponsors, magazines, so you can't have your dining room looking the same all the time. So I was always having to change it up.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of reasons you saw benches, but again, great for photos, not great for use.
Yeah. Yeah. And great for kids, like you said, maybe great if you have a bunch of littles under a certain age and they can all squinch in there. It's super cute, but not so great for adults. And I didn't even really think about that when you said about getting up. All the times I've contemplated, because I certainly considered the bench. I never did it, but I wanted to. I never even thought about that. Excuse me. Like, you want to get out. Okay, so that's annoying too. So
and then you have to announce, excuse me, but I need to go to the powder room. How would you like to have to announce that and then make everybody get up?
Exactly. And they're like, didn't you just go half hour ago? That's why I always want the end seat on the airplane. Bench would be a mistake. Don't fall prey to that. And the trend's over anyway, so don't do it.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah. No rug. We alluded to that earlier when I was talking about the chairs moving in and out. You really need to have a rug in there. I didn't have it in my former home in our dining room because my kids were super little then and stuff was falling all the time. And I thought, it's hard enough to vacuum and clean. At least I can get under there and really clean it. But as soon as they were able to keep the food more so in their mouths and on the table, I have a rug. And it is a really nice thing to have in a dining room for not only the visual impact, the aesthetics, the acoustics. You could just go on and on as to why you should have a rug in there. And it just sort of grounds the furniture, breaks up all the wood, especially if you got a wood floor and a wood table and wood chairs. Right? So it's a great idea. Just get the right sized rug. Oh, you're here. I was busy crushing it on Cookie Jam. Cookie Jam is so much fun. It's a free match 3 game you play on your phone or tablet. You just match 3 cookies or candy to clear the board and solve puzzles. There are over 11,000 levels with new ones added every week, so you're never going to run out of challenges. Take a break while you're online at the bank, while you're waiting for a doctor's appointment. Whether you're taking a quick break or you just need a moment to relax, Cookie Jam is an easy, soothing way to unwind alongside over 100 million players around the world. I enjoy the escape of Cookie Jam. It's kind of exercising my brain without me knowing I'm exercising my brain. So you deserve a treat. Join me and over 100 million other Match 3 players and download Cookie Jam today. So treat yourself to Cookie Jam. Join over 100 million Match 3 players and download Cookie Jam today.
Well, you are right about the acoustics, because I went to a coffee shop recently and it had concrete floors and wood walls. I mean, it was a lovely coffee shop, but we did not have that many people in the coffee shop when we were there. But it was so loud. Every voice was bouncing off every single surface. And really the only soft thing in the building were the clothing people were wearing. So you can imagine the noise was very intense, and it was very hard to hear the conversation right across from you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And if you are entertaining in there and you want to be able to have people actually have conversations and not just have to talk to the person right next to them, you want to think about things like that. And not enough textiles. So we've already given you some ideas how you can add textiles. We did the lumbar pillows. We're doing the rug, draperies for sure. We'll do that. And maybe adding some things to the table surface. Now, this can be for entertaining or just for looks. You should have something on your table. I love a runner or the tablecloth sort of on the diamond diagonal, like Anita and I have explained to you before. I don't like it fully covering unless I'm actually having some sort of sit-down dinner. But there should be things on your table. We see so much of the lonely vase, the lonely, dare I say, faux arrangement, right? We see the lone empty bowl just sitting there on the wood table.
What did you talk about before? Those balls made of the rattan?
I outlawed those.
Yes,
in our prior working with texture episode. So yes, they've been outlawed. So if you're living in my world, that's a felony. No more of those balls. And certainly you don't want a little bowl of those balls lonely on your table. I think it was during the Nancy Myers aesthetic episode that we recently produced. We talked about having a lot of things on your table. Was that the one we talked about that in? But one of the more recent episodes, we talked about loading up your dining room table, not making it look like a store, but using a lot of things on there, particularly if it's a big, long table. You just don't want to have one little thing in the middle. So that would be a mistake just to do that. And you certainly don't want to make it look like a store. You don't necessarily have to make it look like you're going to have a sit-down dinner for 12 all the time, but you can put a runner, something appropriately scaled in the center, maybe 2 big candlesticks or a cluster of 3 flanking that appropriately sized center item. Maybe off to the side, you have a stack of decor books with maybe a little coaster or something like that with a candle on it. So you're filling up the space and it looks beautifully decorated for when it's not in use, but yet there's openings or there's areas where there's not things. So you could take a laptop and go and sit in there. So make the tabletop interesting. The table is going to be the biggest piece in the room 9 out of 10 times, right? So that's going to be kind of the focal point. So when your eye is drawn to it, you want to have it have some interest.
When you're entertaining, think about where you're going to put your food and drink, because a lot of the modern tables are very narrow. So you really can't put the food on the table. I've also found that people are embarrassed to ask for seconds. So it seems like it just works better to have a buffet line so you can put your food and drinks on a buffet, on a countertop in the kitchen, someplace, a bar cart, someplace where people can go get food, go get drinks and serve themselves. And as I was saying, I think people would rather get up from the table and get it themselves than to ask them to pass something to them. I've noticed that because, again, I think they feel like they don't want to bother anyone.
Well, imagine if you're stuck on the bench and you're in the middle and you have to pee and you're still hungry. You are in bad shape.
And you've already gotten up twice to go to the bathroom.
Exactly.
And now you want seconds? They're like, right. You are so high maintenance.
You want to Elastigirl your arm across the room and grab the wine bottle. Here's a big mistake. Sometimes people's dining rooms are boring. Boring. They don't have to be boring. They shouldn't be. They can be like a powder room, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the episode. They can be wow. And you can do that with wallpaper. You can do that with a cool paint color. It doesn't have to be the red of the 1980s, but it can be a really saturated, fabulous color. You can go super dark in there. You can do cool pattern. You could do grass cloth. You could put some woodworking, if you don't have that already, on the bottom part. I hesitate to tell people to put woodworking because that was sort of very trendy maybe a couple of years ago, where people were just sticking wood on walls in houses that wouldn't necessarily have that. So look to the architecture of your home and the rest of the rooms in your home before you decide to add any type of woodworking. But if it would work in your home, if it's an older home where you've got some nice moldings in other rooms, maybe you want to go a few steps further in the dining room. It would be a mistake just to paint it beige or even just white. You can really jazz it up. Not that white isn't beautiful, but if you're going to do white and you're going to do all neutrals, then we want to see what? A lot of texture, a lot of interest. We don't want to just see a cherry wood dining set with plain white walls and an empty vase in the middle of the table. No, we don't. That's a mistake. You're wasting this room in your home that could be fabulous. You just have to be a little daring with it.
Well, speaking of felonies, this is my felony. Strong non-food smells in the dining room.
Oh!
Scented candles, room fresheners, whether they be plug-in.
Oh,
or,
God. Plug-in.
Or I don't know what else, maybe a spray. These are not smells I want to smell in the dining room. And here's the thing. A lot of these things are artificial and they're toxic. And a lot of people are very sensitive to these toxins. So just don't, is my suggestion. If you must have a scent in the house, use something with the essential oils, but not in the dining room. You do not want smells competing with the beautiful, wonderful aroma of the wonderful food that you are serving. So that's my PSA. And if your clothes smell like the dryer sheets, then take a whiff of yourself before you go in there, because you could be the offending item in the room if you're wearing something and it has that strong smell.
Yes, candles at the ready, but absolutely unscented in the dining room. 100% agree with that. I love tapers in the dining room. I would go ivory or white. I'm not a fan of the colored candle. I guess an argument could be made in favor of them, but that's not really my vibe. So that's what I would suggest. But having them close by too. There's probably a drawer in your buffet or someplace in your dining room, because like anything, like the dishes, like the silver, like any of your pretty things that you'd like to use, if it's not handy, you're not going to do it. So have them ready, have them nearby. Make sure you've got a lighter, some matches, and some candle holders, obviously. Nearby, it would be a mistake not to do that in any room, but particularly the dining room. Another mistake is not having a mirror, not only to reflect this beautiful candlelight that you might be having on your table, but also just to reflect the outdoors. Best place is to have the mirror opposite a window if possible, but a mirror in a dining room does so much for that space. You could have it over a buffet or a break front piece, and maybe that's where you do a little serving, or maybe you just have some pretty things displayed there. And the mirror will then reflect not only what's happening in the room, but up close what's happening right on the top of that piece of furniture. So a mirror in any room is something that I'm an advocate for, but particularly in the dining room.
Oh, I think it's a great idea because you want to reflect a beautiful view. If you do not have a beautiful view, then do not put the mirror across from the window.
Yeah, your neighbor's trash bins or something. No, put it someplace else and reflect the beautiful people that you have gathered around your table. A mistake in the dining room would be ignoring the ceiling. Here's a room where you can really go to town on the ceiling. So maybe you don't want to put wallpaper on the walls, or maybe you're concerned about painting them a deep color, but you could do it on the ceiling. It's a little bit less obvious, but it's very intriguing because it's less obvious, right? So you kind of have to look up. It also brings your eye up. People will obviously notice there's something going on the ceiling, but people aren't walking, looking up the whole time. So it's just a little teaser in a sense, right? And maybe bring some color in and then dot that color around the room in maybe some of these lumbar pillows, or in a runner, or a tablecloth, or napkins if you're actually setting the table. So that can be a wonderful way to work in some wow into your dining room. So check. Are you making any of these mistakes in your dining room? Can your dining room be more spectacular than it is right now? Get to it. Are we defining something today?
Yes, we're going to define stoop. So a stoop is a small porch at the top of a short exterior stairway. And this was originally brought to the Hudson Valley of New York by settlers from the Netherlands. And the word stoop is a word with Dutch origins from colonial times. And stoop in Dutch is spelled S-T-O-E-P, and it means step or sidewalk. And these were important places because this is when the houses were built and the mode of transportation were horses. And so there was a lot of horse manure on the streets. So they did not want that going in the houses. So the houses were built up. So that didn't come in the house. And therefore you had this little short staircase, and then this little stoop, or this exterior little porch area that was very small. And this was also a place where people would hang out and socialize with their neighbors as they walked by, and kids would hang out there as well. So there you have it.
Okay, I love that you're doing more of the history of some of these words rather than just the straight up definition. Because when you said stoop, I'm like, the girl, I'm from New York. I know what a stoop is. Right?
I know you do.
Hanging out on the stoop.
I know too. Yes. But not every place has that.
And now it makes sense. I mean, Manhattan, the Dutch, all of this makes sense. Brownstones have stoops. There's stoops all through Brooklyn and all the other boroughs in New York. I think that's so interesting as to really what the origin of the word is and why they even made this thing. Well, obviously very practical. We certainly wouldn't want horse manure in the house for any good reason.
Well, in London too, they have these as well. But you're right, very common in New York. And you're right, of course you know what this word is. But, a lot of places in the U.S. were built after the automobile was the main source of transportation. So a lot of towns don't have stoops.
Well, a lot of people don't use that word either in different geographic areas, right? They might say steps, front steps, stairs. But stoop, to me, is a very East Coast thing.
Yes.
Love it. Thank you.
I found really one of the most beautiful trays I have ever seen on Amazon for less than $25. It has the most amazing pattern on it. And I'm going to give a link to it. And I got it in the multi-F pattern. I mean, it's that specific one you'd have to get that I am saying is so beautiful because I didn't really like the other ones. But it looks like a William Morris type print. I don't think it is William Morris, but it's kind of like that. Very vibrant colors, a very involved pattern. There's aqua in there. There's a little bit of green, yellow, and the background is a navy. And it was so beautiful. I got 2 of them. And everybody that's seen them so far, I've only had them in the house for a few days, but I've had a lot of company in. Everyone loves this tray, except my brother who didn't say anything. But what do you expect?
Well, He's neutral. He doesn't.
Can you believe he didn't notice my tray?
He might secretly really like it. He just didn't
he
say.
probably does. Yes. So anyway, but it's very beautiful, and remember, it's the multi-ep if you go looking for it. But check out the link in the show notes.
Oh, and My Crush is a podcast that you can listen to. You may have listened to the Splendid Table on your local radio station, but they have turned themselves into also a podcast. They don't have that many episodes on the podcast feed. I know the Splendid Table's been around for years and years and years, but it's a great show, and I would highly recommend it. So we will have the link to the Splendid Table podcast in the show notes.
Wonderful. I need to check it out. And thank you for hanging out with us. We hope you've enjoyed it today. And remember, we're here to inspire you to create a beautiful home. Until next time.
Fabulous, fun, wow, even better than I had hoped or expected. These are just a few of the words used to describe a DTT design consult. We've been doing consults for many years, and boy, are we good at it. And people are loving the results of the advice and suggestions that we make for them. It's so easy to schedule a consult with us. Just simply go to our website, decoratingtipsandtricks.com, and click consult. There you'll be led through the very simple process. And sooner than later, you, I, and Anita will be discussing your home in detail. So sign up for a consult today. Let us help you design and decorate the home that you want and deserve. Looking forward to talking to you soon.